I am Hailey Brooks, 29, and literally just last weekend my carefully maintained role as the family scapegoat completely blew up in my face at Emma's wedding rehearsal. My status as the dependable doormat, always quiet, always accommodating to my younger sister's insecurities, it spectacularly backfired. The fragile family harmony I'd spent years painstakingly holding together by biting my tongue and dimming my shine, it shattered into chaos in a single night. My own parents, the very people who should have protected me, straight up decided I was a threat. And when I finally had enough and stood up for myself, you should have seen the looks on their faces. "You're ruining everything for your sister," Mom screamed, her voice shaking with outrage. Dad just stood there, eyes cold and distant, refusing to even look at me. Emma sobbed theatrically, of course, milking every second of it, as the guests at the rehearsal stared at us like we were reality TV entertainment. But here's the thing. Those awful moments, as soul-crushing as they were, didn't break me. Instead, they ignited a spark of rebellion I hadn't felt in years. I'm not just going to let them push me around anymore. I'm about to flip the entire script, rewrite my life, and show them exactly who Hailey Brooks really is. But let's rewind for a second. You need some context. For as long as I can remember, I've been the family's designated punching bag. Metaphorically speaking, anyway. Growing up, every achievement I made had to be swiftly muted or minimized so as not to upset the delicate balance that placed Emma firmly in the spotlight. If I won a math competition, it was dismissed as meaningless next to Emma's cheerleading trophy. If I got into a prestigious college, it was glossed over because Emma needed help with her homework. And God forbid my success discourage her. Over time, I learned to shrink myself, to hide any accomplishments, lest they inadvertently wound my sister's precious ego. So last weekend when the wedding rehearsal went sideways, I shouldn't have been surprised. After all, the Brooks family mold is pretty simple. Emma shines, I support. Emma smiles, I sacrifice. And for 29 exhausting years, I played that role without complaint, at least publicly. But the night before Emma's big day, things shifted dramatically, and now I'm done being their pawn. Now before I spill all the tea about the insane thing my parents did next, seriously, you wouldn't even believe it if I told you right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, hit subscribe, and stick around. Because this is about to become the most satisfying revenge you'll ever hear. And looking back, I can honestly say this nightmare turned into something more powerful than revenge. It became a journey towards something way better. You wouldn't believe what I'm about to do once I finally break free from the Brooks family shadow. People always talk about how the quiet ones surprise you, but I'd argue it's the invisible ones who pack the real punch. And trust me, I've spent most of my life invisible. It wasn't always this way, though. As a kid, I naively thought that hard work and genuine talent meant something. I loved learning, and I thrived on praise from my teachers. In 5th grade, I won the regional science fair, something I'd poured my heart into for weeks, constructing a solar-powered mini robot from scratch. My teachers were ecstatic, practically crowning me as the future of innovation. But when I rushed home to show my parents the trophy, their reaction was less than lukewarm. Mom glanced at it briefly, distractedly nodding as she ironed Emma's ballet recital dress. Dad merely grunted from behind his newspaper. "Oh, that's nice, Hailey. But did you hear about Emma's big news?" Mom quickly redirected. "She got a lead role in the recital. We're so proud." My heart sank. Even as a 10-year-old, I understood my family's unwritten rule. Emma's achievements mattered. Mine didn't. Still, I kept trying. In high school, I aced my SATs and won a full scholarship to a prestigious university. I was ecstatic, bursting through the front door with my acceptance letter waving like a victory flag. Mom's first words? "Oh, that's wonderful, dear," she said absently, barely glancing up from folding Emma's cheerleading uniform. "But Emma's really struggling with geometry? Could you tutor her tonight?" No celebration dinner, no proud phone calls to relatives, just another immediate pivot to Emma. Even when I graduated college at the top of my class, my parents barely acknowledged it. Dad missed the ceremony altogether, and Mom spent the whole reception fussing over Emma, who was in tears because she'd just broken up with her boyfriend. My own milestone passed quietly, overshadowed by my sister's perpetual drama. But nothing Not my science fair trophy, not my full scholarship, not even graduating with honors, hurt as much as the day I landed my first major career achievement. I'd secretly been working on an online brand, carefully hiding my success from my family to avoid their sabotage. When my first big sponsorship deal came through, I decided it was time to finally reveal my triumph to my parents. Heart-pounding, I showed them the contract, grinning from ear to ear, waiting for the pride I'd been denied my entire life. "Oh," Mom said slowly, as if trying to comprehend. "Well, that's nice. But Hailey, dear, Emma just announced she's engaged. Isn't it wonderful news?" In that instant, all my excitement evaporated. Once again, my success was nothing more than an inconvenient interruption to Emma's happiness. Once again, I was invisible. I learned a harsh lesson that day. My family didn't ignore me because I wasn't good enough. They ignored me because my value to them depended entirely on maintaining Emma's carefully constructed superiority. I wasn't their daughter. I was Emma's supporting cast. From that moment, something hardened inside me. My family had no idea of the storm they were brewing. Because when someone's been invisible their whole life, there's nothing left to lose, and absolutely everything to gain. The moment I decided to build something for myself, something real, something unshakably mine, was one of those quiet, unassuming evenings. Rain pattered gently against my apartment windows, each droplet echoing a tiny drumbeat urging me to action. It was shortly after Emma's engagement announcement, and I was still seething from the sting of my family's dismissal. But beneath that hurt simmered a new determination, a spark that refused to be snuffed out this time. I was scrolling mindlessly online, drowning my frustrations in endless, meaningless distraction, when something clicked. An influencer video popped up on my feed, bright and carefree, promoting products with effortless charm. I stared at the screen, half watching, half thinking, and a thought quietly nudged its way forward. Why not me? I'd always loved photography, storytelling, and sharing small bits of my day online, but I'd hidden those passions, afraid they would give Emma another reason to feel threatened. But what if, for once, I stopped worrying about her and started focusing solely on myself? What if I dared to put my creativity out there, unfiltered and bold, without anyone in my family knowing? That night, something shifted deep inside me. Before I could second-guess myself, I opened a fresh new account under a pseudonym, determined that my family would never find out. If they couldn't see me, they couldn't sabotage me, and finally, maybe, I could bloom without constantly checking for weeds. I started simple. Clean, bright lifestyle photos, short videos sharing everyday hacks, small tips, glimpses into an authentic life people could relate to. The content was unpretentious but thoughtful, and soon my audience began to grow. Slowly at first, then more quickly, people started noticing me. Not as Emma's overshadowed sister, not as the invisible daughter, but as Hailey, someone worth following in her own right. Every night, after finishing work at my boring office job, I'd rush home, pull out my camera, and film for hours. It was exhausting, lonely, but also exhilarating. For the first time in my life, I had a place where my voice mattered. Every comment, every new follower was like a gentle validation of everything my family had refused to see in me. Within months, brands began to notice. Small sponsorships trickled in. At first free products, then real offers, and eventually significant deals with well-known companies. My secret account flourished into a vibrant business, thriving quietly beneath my family's radar. I'd carefully built something successful, something purely mine, and as I watched the follower counts skyrocket, my confidence soared alongside it. Then came the call, the big one. Just days before Emma's wedding, an email landed in my inbox that nearly stopped my heart. A major brand wanted an exclusive, lucrative partnership that would transform my business overnight. It was everything I dreamed of and more. Financial independence, validation, freedom from my family's suffocating shadow. The meeting was scheduled for the day after Emma's wedding. Perfect timing, I thought, almost poetic justice. Finally, I had something to hold on to, a secret strength that would carry me through whatever humiliation awaited at Emma's big day. Little did I know, though, the depth of cruelty my family had planned. The night before Emma's wedding, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, quietly preparing myself for what would inevitably become a spectacle, designed entirely to showcase Emma's perfection. and reinforce my role as the family's supporting cast. My heart was heavy. The anxiety of facing another family gathering was coiled tight in my chest, making it difficult to breathe. But tonight, beneath the dread, something else stirred. The quiet thrill of my hidden success simmered inside me like a secret power. Tomorrow, I'd endure their humiliation one final time, knowing that the very next day I'd step into a life I'd built entirely for myself. Yet, even as I tried to reassure myself, I couldn't shake an uncomfortable premonition. I brushed my long blonde hair, the only feature Emma openly envied, taking slow, deliberate strokes, trying to soothe my nerves. I caught my reflection staring back at me, defiant yet wary. The shiny strands fell around my shoulders in soft waves, reflecting the bathroom's pale light. Emma had always resented how effortlessly people complimented my hair. Even strangers at the grocery store would smile warmly, saying things like, "What gorgeous hair you have!" I sighed, laying down the brush. Tomorrow I'd keep it simple. I'd wear the plainest dress I owned and tie my hair back so as not to outshine the bride. As much as it stung my pride, I knew keeping peace was easier. One more day of swallowing humiliation, then I could finally break away, finally celebrate my success openly. My phone buzzed, another text from Mom, reminding me again to keep it low-key tomorrow. Her exact words, "Remember, dear, it's Emma's day. Let's not repeat the rehearsal drama." I gritted my teeth and typed back a quick passive "got it" before tossing my phone aside. Typical. Even when I'd done nothing wrong, I was preemptively reprimanded, my mere presence treated as an inconvenience. The rehearsal had been a disaster, not because I'd tried to sabotage anything, but simply because Emma couldn't handle the attention shifting, even for a moment, away from herself. One guest had casually complimented my hair, and Emma burst into tears, accusing me loudly in front of everyone of deliberately trying to upstage her. It was absurd, childish, but my parents instantly took her side. The entire room had turned on me, casting me as the villain. I shook my head, trying to chase away the bitter memories. Tomorrow would be painful, yes, but I'd survive, and afterward, I'd never let them hurt me again. I turned off the bathroom light and crawled into bed, exhaustion tugging at my consciousness. As my eyelids grew heavy, my last comforting thought was of the freedom and independence waiting on the other side. But sleep betrayed me. Sometime in the night, I vaguely sensed a presence in the room. Rustling sheets, whispers, a gentle pull on my hair. In my half-conscious state, I brushed it away as dreams twisting reality. Little did I know, in those quiet, vulnerable hours, my parents were preparing to unleash a cruelty beyond anything they'd ever inflicted. The stage was set for the greatest humiliation I'd ever known. Morning sunlight sliced through my bedroom window, warming my cheek and gently pulling me from sleep. My eyes fluttered open slowly, blinking away the haze of dreams. But as I shifted on my pillow, something felt immediately wrong. A sickening coldness prickled down my spine, an eerie sense of emptiness that jolted me awake. My hand shot instinctively to my head, and then I felt it. My hair, my beautiful, long blonde hair, was gone. My heart pounded as panic surged through me. Sitting upright, my fingers frantically searched my scalp. Short, uneven strands brushed roughly against my fingertips. My breath caught painfully in my throat as disbelief gave way to a terrifying certainty. Someone had done this deliberately. I stumbled from my bed, legs weak with shock, and rushed to the mirror across the room. A horrific reflection stared back at me, ragged patches of blonde hair, crudely chopped and uneven, framing a pale, terrified face. My stomach twisted violently, and a wave of nausea hit me so hard I nearly collapsed. There, lying on my bedside table, were the cruel instruments of betrayal, a pair of household scissors haphazardly tossed aside, mocking me with the brutality of their use. "Mom!" I shouted, barely recognizing my own voice, hoarse, trembling, edged with rage and despair. "Dad? Emma?" Seconds later, my bedroom door opened slowly, revealing my mother's solemn face, my father behind her looking stony and unapologetic, my hands clenched into fists, nails digging sharply into my palms. "How could you do this?" I demanded, my voice breaking, tears of fury blurring my vision. "Why?" My mother had the audacity to look remorseful as she spoke, her eyes averted, her voice trembling. "It was necessary, Hailey. You know how sensitive Emma is. Your hair would have taken attention away from her on her wedding day." I stared at her, stunned silent. My father shifted uncomfortably but didn't say a word. Emma hovered behind them, her face carefully arranged into the familiar pout of victimhood, eyes wide with feigned innocence. "You cut off my hair while I slept, because Emma is sensitive?" My voice rose sharply, vibrating with rage. "Do you hear how insane that sounds?" "Stop being dramatic," Emma sighed, rolling her eyes dismissively. "It's just hair, it'll grow back." My vision narrowed as tears burned hotly down my cheeks. Rage, betrayal, and a depth of hurt I'd never known erupted inside me. "It's not about the hair," I whispered harshly. "It's about the fact that you would mutilate me to protect your pathetic image. You destroyed my dignity." Emma scoffed, looking at my parents as though expecting them to protect her from my justified anger. Mom stepped forward again, hands outstretched, trying to placate me like a child throwing a tantrum. "Hailey, you're blowing this out of proportion. Just get ready and come to the wedding. Do it for the family." My laugh was bitter, laced with acid. "Family? You're not my family. Family doesn't violate each other like this." As they turned away, leaving me shaking with outrage and humiliation, I made a silent vow. After today, they'd never have the chance to hurt me again. The wheels of revenge were already spinning. Emma's wedding day passed in a blur of misery and humiliation. Every moment was a painful reminder of the violation I'd suffered. Forced to attend with my hair crudely chopped and styled into something barely passable. Mom had hastily booked an emergency salon appointment, where the stylist pitied me openly while trying desperately to salvage my dignity. But even professional hands couldn't hide the cruelty inflicted upon me. I arrived at the ceremony painfully aware of every lingering glance and whispered comment. "Oh, what happened to Hailey?" Aunt Barbara loudly asked, drawing the attention of nearby guests. Mom instantly intercepted the conversation with a nervous smile, quickly steering her toward a safer topic. Emma's beauty, Emma's dress, Emma's perfect wedding. At the reception, humiliation escalated further. Seated deliberately at a distant corner table, far from family and close friends, I spent the evening enduring pitiful smiles and awkward silences. The final straw was when Dad stood to give his toast. Glass raised, his proud voice rang clearly across the reception hall, piercing my chest with every carefully chosen word. "To Emma, our pride and joy," he declared, beaming with exaggerated warmth. "You have always been our brightest light, our greatest source of happiness. Nothing and no one could ever dim your shine." His eyes flickered briefly in my direction, cold and distant, before returning to Emma. "You've made us endlessly proud." My heart froze. The meaning was crystal clear. Emma was the family's chosen one, and I was the expendable inconvenience who existed merely in her shadow. My hands trembled in my lap, fingers twisting the napkin so tightly I felt the fabric tearing beneath my grip. Unable to bear it any longer, I stood abruptly, the scraping chair drawing sharp stares and whispers. Emma's eyes shot toward me, flashing anger disguised as shock. I needed air, desperately. Stepping outside, I gasped for breath, the cool night air stinging my flushed skin. Tears of others I'd been holding back finally broke free, running unchecked down my cheeks. All the pain, humiliation, and betrayal came crashing over me in waves, leaving me weak and shaking. Suddenly, the door opened behind me and Mom stepped out, her expression stiff, uncomfortable. "Hailey, this isn't about you," she hissed, voice low and harsh. "Can't you just behave for one night?" I turned slowly, incredulous. "Behave after what you did to me?" She scoffed dismissively, brushing aside my pain as if swatting an annoying insect. "It was just hair. Honestly, Hailey, stop being selfish. This day belongs to Emma." Something snapped inside me at her callous words. A fierce, unfamiliar calm settled over me as I wiped my tears, looking directly into my mother's cold eyes. "You're right," I said quietly. "It does belong to Emma. Everything always does. But I'm done. After tonight, you can consider me out of your lives." She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "Oh, please, Hailey, you need us more than we ever needed you." She turned, walking swiftly back inside, leaving me in the silent chill of the night. I watched her retreat, knowing that, despite her words, I'd soon prove just how little I needed them. And as I stood there in the cold, my phone suddenly buzzed insistently in my purse. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Everything was about to change. My phone buzzed urgently again, a welcome distraction from the deep ache of betrayal still pulsing in my chest. Pulling it from my purse, I glanced at the caller ID and felt my heart skip. It was Michelle. my brand manager. The timing seemed surreal, almost cinematic, a call from my real life arriving exactly when my old one had just shattered beyond repair. Taking a steadying breath, I answered, forcing my voice to sound calm despite my racing pulse. "Hey Michelle, what's up?" "Hailey?" Michelle's cheerful voice bubbled through the speaker, oblivious to the wreckage she was interrupting. "Are you sitting down? Because this is going to blow your mind." I managed a strained chuckle, pacing slowly across the venue's empty parking lot, my footsteps echoing gently against the pavement. After tonight, nothing could surprise me. "Oh, I think this will," Michelle replied excitedly. "They loved you, Hailey. Loved everything you've built. They're offering a 2-year exclusive partnership, full creative control, huge marketing support, and honestly, life-changing money." I stopped dead in my tracks, her words hanging impossibly in the air. "Life-changing?" Michelle laughed warmly, enthusiasm pouring from her voice. "We're talking 7 figures annually, Hailey. Your brand's going nationwide overnight. You did it." My knees nearly buckled as disbelief, relief, and something close to triumph surged through me. Tears filled my eyes, different from the painful ones I'd shed moments ago. These tears felt cleansing, empowering. "Hailey, still there?" Michelle asked gently, sensing my stunned silence. "Yeah, I'm here," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear this right now." She paused, then spoke softly. "Listen, I know how hard you've worked for this. I know you've sacrificed so much, quietly building your brand from nothing. You deserve every bit of this success." Her words struck deep, resonating in a way my parents' praise never could have. Here was someone who saw me, genuinely saw my worth, without conditions or comparisons. I swallowed hard, struggling to find words. "Thank you, Michelle." We talked briefly about logistics, timelines, and next steps, but beneath all the excitement, a single, powerful realization crystallized within me. This was the moment my life split decisively away from my toxic past. Standing alone in that cold parking lot, with the muted music of Emma's wedding drifting from the distant building, I felt something inside me change, an unyielding strength born from finally embracing my worth. When I ended the call, I stood silently under the soft glow of a solitary street lamp, savoring the raw power of newfound independence. Tonight's betrayal had been brutal, cutting deep into my soul, but in this moment it lost its power over me. My family had tried to crush me, to reduce me to nothing, but I had emerged stronger, free of their shadow, brighter than ever. And now, armed with this fresh confidence, I would no longer be the victim of their cruelty. No, I was finally ready to face them on my terms. They had no idea what was coming. The revenge that simmered within me was about to be sweeter and more satisfying than anything they'd imagined. But unlike them, I'd do it with style, quietly, cleverly, and without leaving a trace. They'd never see it coming. Inside the reception hall, the celebration still raged on, music vibrating through the walls, laughter echoing faintly into the chilly night air. My family remained blissfully ignorant, still riding the high of their carefully curated image, Emma, radiant at the center, my parents basking in the reflected glow. I stood outside, breathing slowly, savoring the clarity that came with my newfound sense of self. With my future suddenly bright and undeniably secure, I knew precisely what needed to happen next. Straightening my spine, I returned to the hall with steady, purposeful steps. Heads turned as I entered, eyes wide with curiosity, whispers quickly spreading. Emma's gaze locked onto mine, suspicious and slightly fearful, as if sensing the shift in my demeanor. "Hailey!" Mom hissed quietly as I approached, her voice tense, wary of another scene. "Please behave yourself." I ignored her, stopping at Emma's side. She looked at me defensively, forcing a fake smile, playing up her role of innocent victim. "Here to ruin my wedding again?" Emma whispered, just loud enough for others nearby to hear. "Haven't you done enough damage?" "No," I answered calmly, surprising even myself with my composure. "I'm here to wish you exactly what you deserve, Emma." Emma flinched, clearly uncertain of my meaning, but the crowd murmured approvingly, mistaking my words for genuine affection. Only Emma and my parents recognized the faint trace of warning beneath my seemingly harmless words. Turning toward the crowd, I raised my glass, drawing attention. "Congratulations, Emma. Congratulations to all of you, for successfully pretending that family means unconditional support when we all know better." Gasps rippled through the guests. Emma's eyes widened in panic, Mom paled, and Dad stood frozen, mouth open in silent protest. I smiled coolly, meeting their shocked faces with quiet strength. You cut off my hair, literally mutilating me, to protect Emma's precious ego. You've spent my entire life making sure I never outshine her. But guess what? I paused, savoring their stunned silence. You failed. My words echoed through the hall, the power in them unmissable. The whispers rose sharply, confusion and scandal weaving together. Mom stepped forward, desperate, her voice trembling. Hailey, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. No, Mom, I replied firmly, my voice clear, unwavering. You embarrassed yourselves when you decided that your daughter's success required my humiliation. I refused to stay silent anymore. I refused to be invisible. Turning again toward Emma, who now looked visibly shaken, I said softly, Enjoy your honeymoon, Emma. I hope it's as memorable as you deserve. With that, I calmly set down my glass and walked toward the exit, refusing to glance back at their stunned faces. Behind me, chaos erupted. Shouts, whispers, sobs, but their voices quickly faded away, growing distant with every confident step I took. The feeling was exhilarating, pure freedom and empowerment surging through my veins. Outside, the cool night air wrapped gently around me. I smiled quietly to myself, knowing the chaos I'd subtly set in motion. My revenge wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, it was precise, powerful, and deeply satisfying. As I climbed into my car, feeling the weight of their toxic expectations slipping away, I knew this night was only the beginning of something far greater. From now on, I would live openly, unapologetically, and completely free from their control. The Brooks family might have once owned my past, but I was finally reclaiming my future. And they could do nothing to stop me. After the chaos of Emma's wedding faded behind me, I drove straight to my best friend Mallory's house, knowing she'd be there, waiting. The contrast between the toxic storm I'd just left and the genuine warmth awaiting me was profound. Mallory opened her front door before I even knocked, pulling me into a fierce embrace. No questions asked, just quiet understanding. I've got wine and brownies, she murmured gently, pulling me inside. Come sit. Her cozy living room, softly lit with warm lamps, felt like a sanctuary. I sank gratefully onto her couch, exhaustion finally catching up to me. Mallory busied herself pouring wine, giving me a moment to collect myself. When she returned, she handed me a generous glass, curling up beside me, eyes full of concern. Hailey, your hair, she whispered softly, gently touching the uneven ends. What did they do to you? Tears welled again, but this time they were cleansing, healing. I took a shaky sip of wine, drawing strength from the steady presence of a true friend. They did what they've always done, I sighed, the words tasting bitter but freeing. They chose Emma over me, no matter the cost. Mallory listened quietly as I recounted the night's cruelty, her expression a mix of shock, anger, and heartbreak. By the end, her jaw clenched with protective fury. They don't deserve you, she said finally, voice firm. They never have. I smiled softly, feeling a wave of gratitude for her unwavering support. I know that now. It took too long, but I finally see it clearly. Mallory squeezed my hand reassuringly. Well, whatever happens next, you're not alone. You have me, you have Michelle, and so many others who actually see your worth. I know, I replied softly, warmth spreading through me at the reminder. That's something they could never take from me. We talked late into the night, laughter gradually replacing tears. I shared the incredible news about the brand deal, Mallory's excitement genuine and enthusiastic. She jumped from the couch, spinning around in delight, cheering like a proud sibling, exactly the kind of reaction I'd craved for years but never received from my own family. Hailey, you did it! You're officially unstoppable, she declared joyfully, holding up her glass in celebration. This is just the beginning. Watching Mallory's genuine happiness for my success was powerful, proof that chosen bonds could easily surpass biological ones. Here was someone who celebrated me openly, whose joy wasn't conditional or calculated. The stark difference was undeniable. As dawn approached, we sat wrapped in blankets, sleepy and calm, our conversation drifting gently to dreams of the future, mine suddenly limitless, free of obligation or toxic expectations. Promise me one thing, Hailey, Mallory said softly, her eyes serious and gentle. Promise you'll never hide your light again, for anyone. I smiled, feeling those words resonate deeply within me. I promise. Never again. In that moment, I knew the definition of family had shifted irreversibly for me. The Brooks name carried wounds and betrayal, but tonight, in Mallory's warm home, surrounded by unconditional acceptance, I understood what real family meant: chosen bonds, loyalty, and unwavering support. It wasn't about blood, it was about who stood by you at your lowest moments and celebrated your highest triumphs. My parents and Emma had made their choice. And now, finally, I was free to make mine. Over the next few days, my phone buzzed relentlessly: texts from Mom, voicemails from Dad, even pleading messages from Emma, each laced with a clumsy mix of guilt, manipulation, and thinly veiled desperation. For the first time in my life, I ignored them all, relishing the quiet power that came from setting firm, unyielding boundaries. My silence drove them mad. Their inability to reach me became an unexpected shield, a fortress built brick by brick from their past cruelty. Their panicked messages proved something I'd suspected all along: they needed me far more than I ever needed them. Without me around to absorb their dysfunction, they were left floundering, forced to confront their own toxic dynamic head-on. In the peaceful solitude of my apartment, I found clarity and strength. I booked appointments, reshaped my hairstyle into something fierce and beautiful, reclaiming what they'd tried to destroy. I redecorated my space, symbolically erasing every reminder of the past, replacing their shadows with vibrant art, plants, and warmth that spoke to the future I was determined to build. The brand partnership blossomed rapidly, propelling my online presence into heights I'd never dared to dream of. Michelle helped coordinate interviews, campaigns, and photo shoots. With each new opportunity, I grew more confident, more at ease with being seen. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family's desperate attempt to erase my shine had instead ignited it, brighter and bolder than ever. A week after the wedding, my phone buzzed again, Emma's name flashing insistently on the screen. Curious, I finally answered, but kept my tone distant, controlled. "What do you want, Emma?" Her voice came through shaky and tearful, full of calculated distress. "Hailey, please, everything's falling apart. The wedding backlash online, it's destroying us. You have to help." I almost laughed, a cold satisfaction curling through me. Her carefully cultivated online image, my family's pristine reputation, both unraveling spectacularly. "Why would I help you after what you did?" Emma's voice turned petulant, frustration cracking her mask. "Because we're family. Because everyone is dragging our name through the mud, calling us abusive, cruel. I can't even enjoy my honeymoon. Can't you just tell people it was all a misunderstanding?" "No," I said simply, firmly, surprising myself with how easy it felt to hold my ground. "Because it wasn't a misunderstanding, Emma. It was abuse." Silence stretched between us, charged and tense. Finally, Emma's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You're going to regret this, Hailey." "No," I replied, calm and unwavering. "I regret every minute I wasted trying to please you and our parents. I regret staying quiet for so long. But standing up to you? Setting boundaries? I'll never regret that." I hung up before she could respond, heart pounding. Not from fear but from exhilaration. I'd finally truly taken control. My boundaries were clear, impenetrable walls built from strength, self-respect, and a newfound conviction in my worth. That night, I posted a single, honest statement online, calmly acknowledging the truth. My family hurt me deeply. Boundaries exist for a reason, and I've finally found mine. Thank you to everyone who supports healing and authenticity over appearances. Within minutes, thousands responded with overwhelming support, stories of their own struggles, and gratitude for my openness. My message resonated, striking a powerful chord. My family's narrative had crumbled, replaced by my truth, one I was no longer afraid to speak. And in that moment I realized something profound. True boundaries weren't barriers. They were bridges to freedom. With my family's toxic drama fading into the past, I focused my energy fully on reclaiming the Brooks legacy, redefining what it meant on my terms. My newfound influence and visibility provided me with a unique platform, and I vowed to use it wisely. I was done trying to impress those who never valued me. Now I wanted to make a genuine difference, empowering others who had also suffered in silence. The success of my brand grew steadily, and with it came financial security and opportunities beyond my wildest dreams. But more important than wealth was the ability it gave me to impact others positively. Inspired by my own painful journey, I launched the Brooks Empowerment Initiative, a foundation dedicated to supporting young women who'd been undermined, dismissed, or emotionally neglected by their families. Its mission was simple yet powerful: to help them find their voices, reclaim their stories, and rise above their circumstances. One sunny afternoon, Mallory and I stood together in a bright conference room, looking out at dozens of eager, hopeful faces, the initiative's first group of participants. Young women, each carrying their own invisible scars, but here now, ready to rebuild. "Welcome," I began softly, emotion swelling in my chest. "I created this foundation because I know what it feels like to be invisible, to be told repeatedly in subtle and not so subtle ways that your worth depends entirely on someone else's insecurities." Eyes met mine knowingly, heads nodding gently, silent acknowledgement passing between us. They understood, they felt my truth. "But," I continued, my voice gaining strength, clarity ringing through my words, "I also know what it feels like to reclaim that worth, to finally realize your value isn't dictated by family expectations or societal standards. Your value lies in your voice, your story, your strength. This space is yours, your community, your family. Here you're seen, heard, and celebrated exactly as you are." Applause erupted, heartfelt and sincere, filling the room with warmth. Mallory smiled softly beside me, eyes bright with pride. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose, of legacy being rewritten, pain transformed into something profoundly healing. Afterward, as I mingled with attendees, a young woman named Bridget approached shyly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Hailey," she said quietly, voice trembling, "your story gave me the courage to finally set boundaries with my own family. You saved my life." Her words caught me off guard, emotion tightening my throat. I took her hands gently, meeting her eyes. "You saved yourself, Bridget. You're stronger than anyone ever gave you credit for. Never forget that." As she walked away, shoulders lifted in quiet confidence, I knew this was my true revenge, far sweeter and more profound than any petty sabotage or momentary satisfaction. My family had tried to destroy me, diminish my worth, erase my identity, but through reclaiming my own narrative, I'd transformed their cruelty into strength, empowerment, and lasting impact. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat quietly, reflecting on the incredible journey I'd taken. My family's voice, once loud and powerful, now seemed distant and irrelevant. I'd finally replaced their toxicity with authenticity, creating something that resonated far beyond their limited approval. This was my legacy now, one born from pain but shaped into hope. And for the first time in my life, I felt utterly, completely fulfilled. Months passed and life gradually settled into a rhythm marked by authenticity, self-respect, and genuine happiness. The Brooks Empowerment Initiative grew stronger, transforming lives one story at a time. My brand flourished beyond expectations, not because I chased validation, but because authenticity resonated deeply with people craving truth. Yet, as incredible as those accomplishments were, my greatest victory was internal. Quietly, steadily, I healed. Therapy sessions became routine, helping untangle the complex layers of pain my family had woven through my life. I learned to forgive, not them necessarily, but myself. Forgiveness for staying quiet for so long, forgiveness for believing their lies about my worth. I'd spent years internalizing their cruelty, convinced their treatment reflected some hidden flaw within me. But now I understood the truth. Their cruelty was never about my inadequacies. It had always been about their insecurities. In a quiet corner cafe near my new home in Seattle, I sat across from Daniel, a man who'd entered my life slowly, gently, at exactly the right moment. Our relationship wasn't flashy or dramatic. It was genuine, built on trust, respect, and mutual admiration. He listened as I talked openly about my journey, never judging, never interrupting, simply honoring my story and recognizing its strength. "You know, Hailey," Daniel said one afternoon, stirring his coffee thoughtfully, "the first thing I noticed about you wasn't your past. It was how fiercely and unapologetically you live in the present. That courage is incredibly rare." His words resonated deeply, hitting something tender and true. For so long, I'd been defined by others' perceptions, endlessly adapting myself to fit their narrow expectations. But Daniel saw beyond that, appreciating my resilience, honoring my healing, celebrating me exactly as I was. No conditions attached. Later, as we walked hand in hand along the bustling waterfront, the sun dipping low, painting the sky with vibrant shades of gold and crimson, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. This moment, simple, real, authentic, was worth more than any superficial family approval or forced acceptance. I paused, turning toward Daniel, who smiled softly, sensing my quiet reflection. "You okay?" he asked gently, brushing a strand of my now short but beautifully styled blonde hair from my eyes. I nodded, smiling warmly. "Better than okay. For the first time ever, I feel completely free." And I meant every word. Freedom wasn't just escaping my family's cruelty, it was embracing my truth unapologetically. Freedom was recognizing my value didn't depend on external validation, but on my internal self-worth. Freedom was choosing happiness, love, and authenticity over resentment and bitterness. That night, alone in my peaceful apartment, surrounded by evidence of my reclaimed identity, photographs of friends, achievements earned through genuine effort, reminders of love and healing, I knew I'd truly won. My parents and Emma no longer haunted my thoughts. They were faded shadows, insignificant compared to the bright, authentic life I'd built. Closing my eyes, breathing in deeply, I felt something shift permanently inside me, a quiet, powerful certainty of my worth. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving, wholly and completely. The revenge I'd once longed for had become irrelevant, overshadowed entirely by the profound satisfaction of self-validation. My story had transformed from tragedy to triumph, bitterness to empowerment, victimhood to victory. I'd finally arrived at the place I'd always belonged. Fully myself, entirely at peace and undeniably enough.